Hello everybody, welcome back to another edition of Homemade. And today we are making the easiest chewy butter pecan cookies that you could ever make. You all, these cookies are, oh my goodness, so good, so good. Now, I really don't use butter for my baking recipes, but for this particular recipe, you will need butter, real butter. So I have 2 sticks of salted butter. Now, if you want to use unsalted butter, that is fine, but you will need to add a half a teaspoon more of salt if you are using unsalted butter. I'm using salted butter, so I'm going to put in the amount of salt that this recipe actually calls for. And what you want to do with this butter is you want to melt it all the way down, and you can do that in your microwave. Once you melt it down, you do need to let it cool down for a few minutes and come to room temperature. It typically takes anywhere from about 5 to 10 minutes. A cup and a half of pecans for this particular recipe. So let's go ahead, chop our butter down and put it in the microwave and let it melt, and we're going to come back and start putting our cookies together. We are back and our butter has cooled. We've chopped up our pecans and it is time for us to start putting together our cookie dough. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start mixing the dry ingredients first, then we'll mix our wet ingredients, and then we'll combine. Go ahead and get started mixing our dry ingredients, and we're going to start with a half a tablespoon of salt. And we're just using regular all-purpose flour. Now remember, if you did not use salted butter, you want to make sure that you use a tablespoon of salt. In here, I have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to go ahead and add my baking soda to this. So right now, I am going to add 1 tablespoon of baking soda. And I am going to add 2 tablespoons of corn starch. Okay, so we will whisk this all together. Make sure that it's well combined. Okay, so we'll set that aside, and now it is time for us to start mixing our wet ingredients. So in this bowl, I do have 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar already in here. I'm going to add my 2 sticks of melted butter, and I'm just going to whisk that around until my sugar disappears. Now, I'm going to add 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk. And since this is a butter pecan recipe, I will be adding 1 tablespoon of butter extract. And I am going to add 2 tablespoons of vanilla to this. And we are going to whisk this until it's combined. Make sure your eggs are room temperature. They mix so much better. And another reason you don't want your butter hot is because you don't want to cook your eggs. That's really important. And we are going to combine our wet ingredients with our dry ingredients. And you'll just pour those over in there. And for this, you either want to use a rubber spatula or a rubber spoon. Do not over mix your cookie dough. But this smells so good. So you'll just basically do the folding method. And that is, I'm just taking my spoon, going all the way around and just putting it back on top. And as you can see, this is a really soft dough. So once all of our flour has been mixed in, when we don't see any dry patches of flour anymore, we will put in our pecans. So I just roughly chopped 1.5 cups of pecans, and I'm gonna put those in there. And now we'll do the same thing. We'll just fold those in. Okay, and there we have it. We have our butter pecan cookie dough. And I just like to make sure that all of my dough is scraped down from the sides. And what we're going to do is we are going to cover this and we are going to refrigerate this for at least 2 hours before we start to bake our cookies. So if you want to refrigerate it overnight, it does really good once you refrigerate it overnight. But you need to let this rest in your refrigerator for at least 2 hours before you start to bake your cookies. You're going to take this out, let it sit on your counter for about 10 minutes just to let the dough kind of soften up a little bit. Our cookies have been in the fridge for a little over 2 hours, I would say. And I did take them out just to bring them back up to room temp. And not really room temp. I just left them sitting out on the counter for a second. And that's just so that I'll be able to scoop them out and shake them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just gently spray my cookie sheet, and I am going to put a piece of parchment paper on here. And I just like to lay my parchment paper flat, just like that. My Dollar Tree ice cream scoop, and that's what I'm using. And I'm just going to, I don't want to sit them too close, but I don't want to space them too far out because I want to get as many as I can on here. And all I'm doing, I'm just kind of making them into a ball a little bit. I have my oven preheated to 325 degrees. I'm going to bake them right under the middle of my oven. So I'm going to put them in there, set my timer for 12 minutes, come back, test them, and if they're not done, I'll only set my timer for about 3 more minutes because these are not crunchy cookies through and through. The middle should be somewhat soft. So let's go ahead and put these in the oven, let them bake, and we will come back. Our cookies have completely cooled. We are back. Our cookies are out of the oven, and you all look at that. These cookies are so good. I've already sampled one of them, but when I say the crunchiness of the outside, but they are so chewy. When you make these, because the holiday is coming up, this is a quick and a simple recipe that you can do with your kids, your grandkids, and I promise everybody is going to love this. Even if you want to throw in some chocolate chips, you all, awesome. I know I did not say it earlier, but if you want to keep seeing our easy homemade recipes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel. You all, cooking is as easy or as hard as you make it, but I do promise you, if you just keep it simple, be yourself, life in itself can be so much easier.